Hello friends, welcome to SQL Practical Question video series. This video is a continuation of previous video. In the previous video, we have resolved a problem statement using one method of implementation. In fact, in this video also, we are going to resolve the same problem statement but using a completely different method. So I would strongly suggest you to watch the previous video before continuing this. For a better understanding, first let me give you a small introduction about the problem statement itself. Then I will show you what was the logic I have used to resolve this problem statement in the previous video. Then we will see how to implement the same logic using a completely different method of implementation. So here is the problem statement. We are provided with a table called tax rate, which contains a range and the tax rate. For example, the tax rate 10 is applicable from 1st Jan to 31st Jan. And tax rate 15 is applicable from 1st Feb to 27th Feb. And tax rate 12 is applicable from 1st March to 30th April. So you can see here the date is not a continuous. For example, after 27th, the date starts with 1st. So there is a discontinuity in the date. The expectation is we need to write a SQL to format and print this type of input into a much readable format like this. So there is a 3 rule we need to follow. The first rule is whenever there is no rate before a particular date, then the rate is considered added. For example, before 1st Jan and before 1st March, there is no rate. So we need to say 1st Jan added, 1st March added. The reason I am saying before 1st March there is no rate means the previous deactivation is actually 27th. That means before 1st March, the last date was 28th February where there is no rate exist. That's why I told before 1st March there is no rate. So on 1st March the rate is considered added. Suppose if there is a continuity exists. For example, in the second row, before 1st Feb, the previous date was 31st Jan. There is a continuity but the rate is changed because in 31st rate is 10. Whereas in 1st Feb rate is 15. So there is a change in the rate but the date is continuous. So in that case the rate is considered to be modified. The third rule is the rate is considered removed if there is no rate exist after a particular date. For example, after 30th April there is no rate, so it is considered removed. Similarly, after 27th Feb there is no rate for 28th Feb. So the rate is considered removed on 27th Feb. So this is the logic we need to follow. In fact, this problem statement we have resolved using analytical function and connect by class in the previous method. So let me just run through the logic here. Then we will start looking into how to implement the same thing without using analytical function and connect by. So here is the logic I have followed in the previous video. I have taken the data as it is. Then using lag analytical function, I am accessing the previous row value in the current row. Similarly, using lead analytical function, I have accessed the next row value in the current row. So the intention here is that along with the current row, I am trying to get the previous row value and the next row value so that it is easy for me to check the continuity of date. Also, it is easy for me to check whether the rate has changed between the current row with its previous row. So then using the logic, because I have all the information in a single row, that is a current row, its previous row and its next row. Then I will check whether a previous row has a value or not. Then I will say that it is added. If there is a change in the rate, for example like 15 and 10, there is a change, then I will say it is modified. If there is no row present after a particular day, then I will say it is removed. So this is what I have implemented using case functionality in the previous video. Once we got this type of information, the next expectation is to transform this data into a report wise as the expected data. So to transform this 3 row into this 5 row, in the previous video I have used the connect by class. So basically in this method I have used 2 major functionality. One is like analytical function lead and lag to get the current and its previous row, current with its next row. Similarly, I have used the connect by class here to transform the 3 rows into 5 rows. In today's video, we are going to implement the same functionality without using analytical function and without using connect by class. Fine. So now let me show you the logic what I'm going to follow for the second method of implementation without using connect by and without using any analytical function. So here is our input table. So the key thing I'm going to use here is a self join. So I'm just going to take the 3 copies of the same table, one copy to print the data as it is, another copy to get its previous continuity. For example, before first, if there is any continuity, it will print. If there is no continuity, it will print empty row. For example, before March, there is no continuity because the date before 1st March is 28th Feb. We don't have a row for 28th Feb, so it is giving empty record. Similarly, before 1st Jan also no record because that is the first row. So one copy I am going to use to get the previous continuous value. Similarly, one more copy I am just going to use the next continuation. For example, after 31st, we have a continuity of 1st February. After 27th Feb, we don't have a continuity because we don't have a rate for 28th Feb. So I'm just printing an empty row. Similarly, after 30th, there is no value, so empty row. So like this, we are going to get 3 informations, that is a current, its previous continuation date, also its next continuation rate. Now let us revisit our rules. The first rule is tax is considered added if no rate exists a day before the current activation date. So we have the current activation date here. We have the previous continuity. So wherever there is a null or empty record, that means it is added. Similarly, wherever there is a continuity but the rate is changed, for example in the second row, here it is 10, here it is 15. So there is a rate change, then it is considered as modified. So we can get this information easily by comparing the current row with its previous continuation information. Very similar to that, we can even implement the removal part. So wherever there is no rows after the deactivation date, see here is the deactivation. Wherever there is an empty row here, we can get it is removed. Now that we have all the informations needed, the current row, the change like added or modified, similarly the another change removed. Now we just need to transform this information into an expected output like this. So in the previous video, I have used connect by query to convert a 3 rows of information into 5 rows of expected output. So in this video, I'm going to use simple set operator only. Fine. Now let us see how to implement this method. Okay, I'm creating the table. So the table is created. Let me populate with our test record. Informations are getting populated. So let me just select from the table now. Select star from table. Right. So now let me just select all these columns. So this is going to be our current values or current row. Let's say, let me give alias as C. So let me say c.activation date, c.deactivation, c.rate. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use a simple left outer join. Let me take one more copy of the same table. So this is like a self join. So let me say alias like P for previous on how we are going to join. That is, a current activation date should be 1 greater than the deactivation date. So we can say current activation date plus 1 equal to previous deactivation date. So now I'm just going to select the same thing from previous. So let me say p.activation date, p.deactivation date, p.rate. Okay, so just let me just reorder it. Current activation date minus 1 should be equal to previous deactivation. Otherwise we can say equal to plus 1. That is, current activation date is nothing but the deactivation plus 1. Right. So let me just rearrange this order. So first let us have the previous, then let us have the current. Okay. So very similarly, let us just get the next continuity data also. So I'm just going to take one more copy of this thing. So let me give alias like n. So P for previous, n for next, on. So the condition is nothing but the deactivation date plus 1 should be equal to the activation date. So current deactivation date should plus 1 should be equal to the next activation date. So let's take the next activation date. So now if you see, we got the previous, current. So let me get all this information from the next also. So let me give alias like n, and here also n dot rate. So now we got previous values, a current value, and the next set of values. Fine. So now what we need is, we just need to print whether it is added, modified or something. So that is quite simple and straightforward. So let's put our case statement. Say case when, whenever the previous activation date is null, then it is added. Is null, then added. So end. So let me just give like change 1. Okay. So now comma is missing. Yeah, change 1. So now we got the added. So it is considered modified if the rate is different. Okay. So we'll just add one more condition here. So along with this when class, I'm just going to add one more condition. So the next condition is, it is considered modified when the rate is different. So let's say the current rate is not equal to previous rate. Then in that case, it is modified. So now we got the addition and the modification. Very similar to this, let us get the deletion part also. So now let me say case when the deactivation date is completely null, then it is removed. So let's say the next deactivation date is null, then removed, end. Yeah, it is removed. So now we got the change 1, and let's give alias like change 2. Okay, so now let us comment whatever the information that is not needed. I am not interested in getting all the previous information. Similarly, I am not getting interested in printing all the next set of information. I just need only the change 1, change 2, and set of rows. Fine. So now let me just give alias like with data set as. In fact, you can implement this with subquery also, a simple subquery. I prefer the with class because it is very easy to implement and it is easy to read the query also. Fine. Now we got the information. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select activation date. That is the first activation date, change 1, and the rate. Then similarly, deactivation date, rate, and change 2. First, let us select the activation date, then rate, then change 1. Okay, so let us give alias like change log something. Okay, now we got the first set of information. I'm just going to copy this and say union. So let's take the deactivation date, rate, and change 2. So now we got all this information. Now you can see we just got all the information. We just need to exclude this rows which have a null change log. So let us just make this as an inner query here. Select star from. Let me say where change log is not null. Then let's say order by the data, order by 1. So now if you see, we just got this. We just implemented the same logic whatever we have implemented in the previous video without using analytical function and without using a connect by class. So the key learning here is that how we have actually used the left outer join. So this is the actual replacement for the lead and lag function implementation what we have done in the previous video. Basically this left outer, the first part is basically to get the previous. So this table tax rate C is for to get the current. This rate table tax rate N to get the next. Basically we have implemented this logic using the first case statement. Similarly we got this removed using the second case statement. Now we got all this information. So finally we have just used the union keyword to read two set of information and then combine and display as the required output. So in the previous video, instead of union, we have actually used connect by class to replicate the rows 2 times. So here is our expected output. Okay. So in fact, we have implemented this question, like provided the input table is a tax rate, and we have just modified this information as the more readable change log. Suppose let us assume that our input is this, and if you are expected to do a query to get this output, that is also possible. So we just need to do the reverse implementation of the same query. I would suggest you to try this implementation. Probably I will post this question maybe in the upcoming videos. If you want any questions to be answered, you can post it in the comment section or you can drop to this mail ID. But before that, you can check whether a similar question has already been posted as part of subscriber question series or as part of interview question series. If you're not able to find your question here, please write back to me. I'll be happy to record and post as a new video. Please subscribe and stay tuned for new feature video, interview question, SQL practical question, concept videos and performance tuning videos. Please click the bell icon if you want to receive instant notification whenever new videos are uploaded into this channel. Thanks a lot for watching this video.